Today I'm going to show you how to add a shirred panel to the back of my Milkmaid pattern to replace the zipper and add comfort. You can use the same principle to add a shirred panel to similar dresses with flared or gathered skirts, and this pattern, called the Dream Frock, is available at lydianaomi.com. These are the back pieces of the dress. It's one side of the back, so that's why they are labeled cut 2. We are going to work with the center back panel and start by removing the 1/2 inch or 13mm back seam allowance so that we can cut this on fold instead. Draw a line perpendicular to the center back. Also take note of the measurement of the width of the panel. Draw a line across a piece of paper that will fit your pattern piece. In the center of this line, mark a section that is the width of the pattern piece, and that would be 3 3/16. Now draw a vertical line down the center of your pattern piece and cut your piece in 2. Place the pattern pieces at the marked points on the paper, being sure to align with the horizontal guideline, and tape in place. Connect the top outer corners of the pieces, and you can also square out a line at the center back to keep it from looking pointy, and do the same for the bottom. Then label center back on fold and cut out your finished piece. Also label cut 2 on fold. Now we are going to bring the back side panel into the mix and just take off a 1/2 inch at the bottom. This just helps with a more snug fit because the added elastic does loosen things a bit. Then mark the 1/2 inch or 13mm seam allowance point at the top and bottom and line up the front bodice piece so that it is intersecting at the top seam allowance point, and adjust so that they match when sewing together. Next, you're going to mark how long your elastic is going to be. I recommend making each piece 1 inch shorter than your full back pattern piece width. And you can even mark it on the pattern so that you don't have to measure. Since we added to the center back of the pattern, we also have to add to the pattern piece that connects to it, which is the side back skirt. So simply add to the skirt back the same width you added to your center back bodice minus the seam allowance, because remember we took it off the dress. But then again, you could also leave the seam allowance if perhaps you can't fit the full piece on your fabric, and that will allow you to sew a seam down the back. This seam will be very discreet and will get hidden in the gathers, so you could also do it that way. We have our pieces altered, and now it's time to cut and sew. Place your back panels right sides together and sew along the top curved edge. Understitch on the inner layer, then trim the seam allowance and press with your wrong sides together. And I also want to mention that this faux shirring technique was invented by Natalie Abau when she made my Dream Frock pattern and altered the back. She wowed everyone with it, and I think she also has some of her own patterns, so definitely check out her socials, they'll be linked below. Using white tailor's chalk, mark the channels according to this diagram on the right side of the back panel. I'm starting with a 1/2 inch top and bottom from the edges, and then there's an inch between each 3/8 of an inch channel. So it's an inch, then 3/8, then an inch, then 3/8. And just make sure that your markings are level. I had to go back and straighten the lines because they were slanted a bit. And also a little tip, an old toothbrush is great for erasing lines that you don't want. So keep that old toothbrush, wash it well, and use it. Stitch along each line to create channels for the elastic, and I also recommend that you alternate the direction of your stitch so that the top layer doesn't shift to one side. Cut 7 pieces of 1/4 inch or 6mm wide elastic according to the measurement we established earlier. Then using this clover loop pressing bar, feed through each channel from top to bottom, and don't stretch to even out the elastic until you fed all of the elastics through. It will be much easier to feed through each channel this way. Stitch the ends of the elastic 3/8 or 1 centimeter from the edge. This is 1/8 shy of the full 1/2 inch seam allowance. And before taking out your pin as you sew, make sure you get your machine needle into the elastic first so that you don't accidentally lose the elastic and have to re-feed it through. Now we're going to add the side back panels. If you're going to be sewing in my puffed sleeve later, you're just going to sew across the tops of each panel, right sides together. Then understitch on the inner side. Trim the seam allowance and it's ready to apply to the shirred panel. The side panels I am using here are with my Spaghetti Dream frock dress, so the armhole is also sewn in, which does make the next step a bit more challenging, but if you've left the armhole open for the sleeves, you'll have an easier time at it. So place the side panels right side together at the side edges of the center back shirred panel. And then we're going to wrap the free sides snugly around the top of the shirred panel and down to the bottom, pinning all 4 layers in place. And as you can see, the closed armhole seam is making it a bit more challenging as I mentioned, but if you just add the normal construction, it will be easy like this sample I made. Then sew together slowly, ensuring that all 4 layers are aligned. And turn out to a clean finished back bodice. So here is your back panel done, and it's ready to apply to the front panel of your dress. Once you have fully assembled your bodice, assemble your skirt together, and then we can sew the waist. Place the skirt and bodice waist right sides together, matching the front center notch, the side seams, and the center back notch. Stretch the shirred panel to match the skirt and pin in place. Then you're going to sew the waist seam. When you get to the shirred area, just stretch the fabric until it's flat and sew. And when you're done with it, you're just going to overlock it, or you can use a zigzag stitch to finish those raw edges. Then you can finger press or iron press the seam toward the hem. And of course you would finish up the hem of the skirt to complete this dress, but those are the steps to add in a shirred panel.